So I'm going to talk about this with a focus on Kansas, but when we talk about the GOP, the Republican Party, a lot of what I have to say is obviously very appropriate at the national level as well. But it feels like the center of Kansas and also American political spectrum has been abandoned by the Republican Party. And those of us who, like me, adhere to traditional Republican values, Kansans who identify as Eisenhower, Dole, Kassebaum Republicans, feel as if they've been abandoned as well. Let's take a quick look at the values that traditionally have been long-held foundational principles of the Republican Party, but now are frequently ignored by the current party, or in a few cases even literally turned upside down. Staunch support for free enterprise rather than crony capitalism. Strong defense for individual liberty and personal property rights. Belief that robust international trade and uniqueness, belief that international trade and strong alliances, are the pathway to global prosperity, and that international trade is not a zero-sum game whereby for one party to gain, the other party must lose. Belief in America's strength and uniqueness derives from its history as a nation of immigrants, and that America's prosperity depends on welcoming immigrants who wish to share the American dream while supplying the labor and talent needed to ensure a more prosperous future for all Americans. And finally, conviction that the best and most enduring legislation is that which is passed in a spirit of compromise with strong bipartisan support. None of those values are reflected today in the Republican Party, in Kansas or nationally. So folks like me are saying, where did my party go? And what do I do now? So I think there's great potential there. A lot of the Dole, Eisenhower, Kassebaum Republicans have kind of gone dark. Some have switched sides where they had an opportunity and where they could stomach being a Democrat. Sorry. Some have gone independent. Some hardheads like me remain Republican, even though we feel like we're kind of an outcast. So let me talk a little bit about the legislative process the way it is now. And this is not unique in Kansas. It's not unique to either party. But the intense pressure to conform and go along with what leadership wants is immense. Everyone understands that, but after you have been in the legislature for 12 years, you internalize that much more. Leadership has power to punish recalcitrant members of the caucus. They can remove them from chairmanships, pull them off of committees that are important to them, assign them to undesirable office space or undesirable seats on the floor. Or they can refuse to run legislation that's very important to those members who are trying to act a little bit like a renegade. None of that, as I said, is unique to Kansas or the Republican Party, but they're tools employed by the majority party to keep the members in line and advance their own personal objectives or the objectives of party hierarchy. But Kansas right now is an extreme example of that because the Kansas House and the Kansas Senate currently have supermajorities. They have and they will routinely override vetoes of Governor Kelly, Laura Kelly's desk. And yet, despite holding that immense power, we have witnessed committee chairs stack the deck even further in their favor. Actions like removing some of the chairs in the gallery and placing reserved signs on the chairs that remain so that there is no place for the opponents. Actions like severely limiting testimony time for opponents or creating unrealistically tight timelines to register and submit testimony. So when you have a supermajority, why would leadership continue to employ these tactics? Just because they can? Or is cruelty or disrespect their objective? Perhaps, but I believe they are mostly motivated by fear. Fear that if they allow free and open dialogue, where some members of the committee might be swayed by the points made by the other side and vote against the objectives of leadership. they're afraid of losing that power. Multiple polls of Kansas voters have revealed very strong support for both Medicaid expansion and the availability of medical marijuana. And yet, Republican legislative leadership has continued to stonewall both of issues, not even allowing true debate on either issue. Other issues like reproductive rights, gun control, climate change are approached through such a narrow lens that there is no opportunity for productive discussion of alternatives. So as the majority party continues to ignore the will of the voters, one must ask whether, is this what the creators of our system of government really intended? Is the long-revered concept of representative government merely a convenient fantasy? Is it simply an illusion to which lip service is given while dissent is stifled and debate and compromise are repressed? Are we stuck? Must we accept that this is just the way it is now? I think the answer is no. And I believe that fusion voting shows us a path forward, a chance for a much brighter future for representative democracy. As I mentioned earlier, I'm convinced that the population of Eisenhower, Dole, Kassebaum type Republicans is still very significant in this state. They've gone dark. You don't hear much about them. They're not trying to make any waves because they feel disenfranchised and they don't have a home. But if given the chances, I believe they would welcome the alternative that fusion voting could offer. Presently, if someone of a centrist flavor wins a primary election, they soon feel immense pressure to conform and to give in to the wishes of Republican leadership. But if that individual was elected via fusion voting, they would have dual allegiance to two separate groups of supporters whose objectives wouldn't always be in sync. That frees up that individual to have greater independence to vote according to how they believe is the best option for their district. We would have more competition and voters would have more choices. The major parties would become more responsive to the will of the people. More parties make defections easier, which is what leadership fears. And when that happens, representative democracy wins.